welcome to In the House podcast. I'm here with Toni Singh and I'm Jenny Woon, and I am truly honored to be able to present to you our next guest, Patti Glass, the sweetest girl that I've ever known to work with. And you popped up because I was also running for the ULIBC Women's Leadership Initiative, and I was so excited to learn that you were the recipient of it for 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. Now I'm feeling humbled. Had I known, I would have stepped aside.
No. Looking at everything that you've done ever since you've been in this business and just your passion projects, honestly, like, you are so deserving of it. And that's what we're all about. We're here to kind of lift each other up and talk about what you're excited about, all the projects that you're involved in. And you're in the industry as well. That's how I know you. We worked at Polygon together back in, do you remember what year?
That would have been 06,
Nice.
07, right before the great financial crisis. Yes.
Yeah. And then we've kind of run into each other here and there at events, random encounters on the street. One time we were parking our cars. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about what you're doing now. And you're the Director of Corporate Marketing and Communications for Grosvenor Americas. Let's talk about how you got started in this business.
Oh, certainly. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Toni and Jenny. It's an absolute honor, and I enjoy your podcast very much. So, kudos to you for starting that, and I'm going to help spread the word, because I think the more people that know about it, the better off everyone will be.
Oh, thank
you,
Patti.
Thank you for everything you do for the industry. And so I live in Vancouver, and I share my life with my partner James, who's a professor at UBC, and his daughters, who are 15 and 18, and our son, who's 2. So we have quite a full family, and I'm an identical twin. So that's something that I always like to share, because it certainly has formed who I am today. And I started in real estate marketing, or I guess the real estate industry, if it were, in very, very early on. I knew going to university that I wanted to do something that combined creativity with business. But at that time in 1998, 1999, there really wasn't anything like there is today, which I understand because my oldest stepdaughter just got accepted to the Creative Industries program at Ryerson.
Oh,
so
wow.
which is a huge accomplishment, and just going through the process with her, understanding where she's applied, the world has really opened up as far as education for combining someone who's creative with a business mind. And so I ended up doing economics and geography, and felt that there was more I needed to do. So I went to BCIT, and I really enjoyed their marketing management program. And in order to get a ride home from BCIT every night, I would have to meet up with my dad, who was a developer at the time in 98, 99. He was working out of show homes and presentation centers, selling out pre-sale developments, which at the time was really taking off. And so I was sort of on the sidelines observing, this whole experience of marketing, but for real estate. And so I sort of fell in love with that, the way that, how by sort of telling a story and having a vision, before the development's even built, you can, it really impacts the bottom line. I looked out for companies that were doing that and doing that really well. And that led me to George Wong, who I credit, or I owe so much to, for giving me my, first chance as his marketing assistant. And that's really how I started.
Cool.
Wow. Was that with Platinum
Yeah.
at that time?
Well, at the time, yes, it was. Exactly. It was platinum, and in fact, we created the brand Platinum while I was there, which was my first taste at what corporate marketing and branding actually really meant. Because before that, it was all about the project brand, and hopefully, I get a chance to sort of talk about the two and how I found corporate branding to be my passion. But yes, developing the Platinum brand was really interesting, and it's since evolved to Magnum. But it at the time was the entity within McDonald Realty that did the project marketing.
So once you established yourself with McDonald, how did the rest of your career unfold?
Well, I guess I would say I really enjoyed being part of the marketing campaigns for all the reasons I mentioned, that, the storytelling, the vision, working with the architects and the creative designers, and determining the unit mix and having input on what the persona of the buyer would be. I mean, these are really big concepts for someone, again, with an economics degree. And again, I was still learning marketing as the 5 Ps, etc. So there really wasn't an aspect of the business I didn't have exposure to, and it was a really sort of roll up your sleeves and everyone in and help where you can. And what I found was, after we would develop a project brand, I would sort of hand it over to very, very capable, talented salespeople, and then they would go and sell the product. And I thought, well, I can do that. Why wouldn't I do that? So I did the the UBC real estate program, and got my license, and really enjoyed the extra cash flow. I'm not going to lie, that was awesome. And that allowed me to buy my first pre-sale and really believe in the pre-sale market. And also then believe in what I was selling, because I knew what the walls, were made up of, or what the building systems were, and what the air barrier was, um, and so that was wonderful. But you can probably imagine, not sustainable. So I sort of burned out, really, I think, in the end. And I was seeking something then that was, I think, in my mind, a bit more corporate. And I felt, okay, I'm going to go in the more sort of administrative management route. I thought that would be something kind of longer term that would keep me going, versus the sales, which I remember being told one time that I was too, I don't know if it was emotional, but I connected too much with people. And so my sales process was so drawn out. Like, I would develop relationships with these people, and it was back in the day where you needed to just get them in, get them out, and I'd be, talking about their kids, and room to, where the dog was going to sleep. And so I just, quite frankly, wasn't a good salesperson. For that reason, I took too long. So the cost of close was I was a liability. So I'll never forget that. So it sort of shut me down and focused me on the, like I said, more the admin management. And that's where Polygon had a really wonderful opportunity come up. And a talented, creative, big thinker by the name of Ben Smith found
I
me.
know Ben.
Do you know Ben, Toni?
Yeah, I used to work with him.
Oh my gosh. Yes, he's done several things, and now he's kinsman, I believe.
Yeah, I worked with him at Rennie way back in the day.
Okay. Yes. So he took me on at Polygon, and made me his marketing manager, and through that got to see the master plan community development, and that really was what I was quite excited about, to see how again, the master planned branding, how that incorporated, individual projects within an overall scheme. And so a credit to him for giving me that chance, because I wouldn't have seen it that way. And again, got a real taste at what the corporate real estate marketing world looked like. Completely different from agency, where your clients are changing every day. Your projects are scattered, and budgets have a wide range of budget. And whereas, again, the Polygon model is one that has been wild, because it's a known entity and proven, and just a level of expertise there that I really valued been part of for a few years before, like I said, the recession, and then things changed, and I moved over to engineering, and that was an industry that was, every industry was impacted by the crisis, but engineering had contracts and things that allowed for them to continue growing, and I worked there for several years, branding their corporate marketing campaigns.
What kind of elements, what are the different elements that are required when you're branding for a corporate company versus the master plan communities or the individual buildings that you're marketing?
That's such a great question, and one that I go back and forth thinking about often. So I guess, I mean, a really good example, if I may maybe segue to Grosvenor, because to me that's a wonderful example of, corporate brand and all the attributes that attach to it and why it's important. And in that story, it goes back to 1677, where the Grosvenor family had acres of swampland around what is Buckingham Palace and modern day Mayfair and Belgravia. And their goal was to create workforce housing for people coming into London at the time of the Industrial Revolution. So as I say that, because it was a family company, that started. So the name is a family name, and it follows through the centuries as a reputable company. But that reputation, in our case, has been formed over centuries and is taken forever to build, but it can take moments to destroy. And that's like, the thing about reputation. So even though it's a devolved structure today, meaning we're an operating company with our, an independent CEO and C-suite, and the family don't take decisions on behalf of the property company day to day, it's still a family name. So I think about that from a corporate branding perspective, as opposed to, say, a project where, you're really positioning it to suit the locale, the locally responsive nature of that brand. When we have grown or expanded into different regions, for example, a good example would be Calgary. We came in and did a few condo developments there, and initially, on the surface, it would look like we're a big British company coming in and out of touch, and who are we? We don't know Calgarians, and yet it because of thoughtful project marketing, we positioned it to be very approachable. The language and everything was suited. The vernacular was all suited to that market, and we got to know the people, and so it came across as very authentic. And indeed, we had a wonderful run there over decades. But the same could be said for West Vancouver at Grosvenor Ambleside, where then it was a local buyer. 80 to 90% of that product was to the locals who had input in the design. So the community engagement campaign was critically important to forming what we were going to deliver. So that's a very long way to say, very specific being the project and very local versus the bigger picture. What are the values that's grown over time that attaches to the corporate brand that needs to maintain, and it's the sort of the pillars that we are unmovable, if you will.
I do notice that your Brentwood location, which is off of, I believe, Beta, between Lougheed and Beta, because you haven't really built anything in Burnaby, in North Burnaby, the signage is "Hello neighbor," like get to know us. You don't know us, but we want to get to know you. And it's clearly written that we're new to this neighborhood. We know that, but that doesn't make a difference because we're here to stay.
And it certainly sparks a conversation with the locals.
And I love the farmers market you guys actually hold as well, because you have to go to Deer Lake, and it's like a little bit harder to find parking there, and it's out of the way. But to have something like right in the neighborhood is great. We're actually located in North Burnaby right now, where we're filming.
Is that where you are? Oh,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful feedback. I appreciate that. I'll pass it to the team, all of whom are going to listen to this podcast, of course. But no, that's like, thank you. And again, we, learn from past experience. We have a site in Silicon Valley in Cupertino, Los Gatos actually, and same sort of thing. It was this, if you are not a local and you're coming and trying to do or propose anything and you haven't spent the time, it just won't happen. You can't get things off the ground. So we definitely have we bring that into every project, and it's true to the brand.
Tell us
Fantastic.
a little bit about your role exactly at Grosvenor America.
Oh, okay. So I direct the corporate marketing and communications, and weaved into that is media, PR, and and all those wonderful elements that that are captured under Marcoms, if you will. And what it really means is I help to build the brand, which is one of being active and an investor and developer of real estate across the US and Canada. So that it spans to our Washington, D.C. office and our San Francisco office, and then, of course, Vancouver. So those are our three main markets. We also have secondary markets in Seattle and looking at expansion elsewhere. And we run a structured development finance business where we invest capital with developers. We invest ourselves, of course, into high street retail and value add residential apartments.
Wow.
And
a lot.
I didn't know the
extensive.
portfolio.
yeah, and then we build mixed use residential again in all of the markets. So there are a lot of different things, but we everything from the asset management to the development to the construction, risking construction. We got to have our hand in everything, and we have been active since 1952 here in Canada, which was Grosvenor's first international activity outside of the UK. They bought Annacis Island, and so we do have an industrial holding there as well.
Wow.
But that was our entrance into North America.
Wow. How has the Grosvenor brand evolved over the years since you've joined?
Oh, I love that. I love that question. So fortunately, and in my tenure, I have actually seen that evolution, and I've seen that because we've had great leadership, and we've had great leadership through our past CEO Andrew Bibby, who's now retired, into our CEO, current CEO Steve O'Connell, who's brilliant, and they just they strike a vision that everyone can align with, and it goes back to an exercise that the senior leadership of the entire company did across the world, came together in London a few years ago to talk about our purpose, the company's purpose. And what I loved about that exercise is it wasn't, even though I just said it was senior management came together, it actually didn't come from us. It came from everybody in the company we wanted to hear from them what the shared values were. And by looking at those values, we were able to pull out our purpose, which is to deliver lasting commercial and social benefit through our activities. And that is something that, again, has really, really helped sharpen our focus. So it's not enough to just to deliver a commercial benefit or a profitable building. What's the ancillary? Who has benefited in society and the greater good that how's the community better because Grosvenor there, I guess is how I like to say it. So we have focused much more on sort of urban residential and living, the transit orientation, all of that. So that's in the last 10 years, we've been much more focused on these sort of highly vibrant areas and neighborhoods.
So can you give us some names or funding programs that have started or that Grosvenor's involved in, so we can look it up and reference it in our notes?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the granting institution Grosvenor's granting institution for charitable donations is through the Westminster Foundation, and that's really it is UK based, but it is it's focused on youth, and like I said, it does deploy capital out to the North American charities that we identify and want to work with. Here in Vancouver, we're very involved with Covenant House. And that's one that's again near and dear and youth targeted. Habitat for Humanity is also one that across all three cities we're passionately involved with. Mentorship and the Youth All Stars, which is a mentorship program. We are active in Seattle, and gosh, Jenny, I could list out several. I'll point you to them, but yeah, and it's great too, because that also comes from the staff and the people. So when COVID hit, we wanted to deploy capital and get money out to those hit hardest on the front line quickly. And again, rather than senior management just saying, here's the money, we actually engaged people, all of the staff, to say, where do you think this money needs to go? Like, is your local church impacted? Is your how's the food delivery for these schools and kids who rely on meals, hot meals at school? Have those programs stopped? Let's get funding out to them. So food banks and the Meals on Wheels, whether it's San Francisco or Vancouver. So that was highly emotional and hugely impactful, and a really wonderful silver lining and being able to help.
So wonderful. Just that far-sighted approach of encouraging dialogue and
building relationships
and highlighting these critical issues that we have in every city.
Yeah.
That's why you call it living city approach.
Oh. I know, that's so great.
You had a question?
Wow.
I have a question. It's not as broad. I'm just curious. It sounds like you have such an expansive experience, and it's very specialized in what you do. I'm curious what a typical day looks like for you and how you get everything done. Because you also mentioned you have a 2-year-old at home and other kids as well, but they require, little kids require a lot of work. So what does your typical day look like to get everything done?
Well, I'm very grateful for the support that I have around. It hasn't been, through COVID, parents haven't been, the natural option, but the daycare Robert goes to has remained open. That, again, when I talk to my peers in other cities, that just hasn't been the case. So we're really fortunate here in that he's had a part-time daycare option, and then his nanny who comes in to help as well a few days a week. And and then between my partner and I, who, as I mentioned, is a professor but also works in the sustainable asset management field, has been here at home too. But putting them in front of the TV at 2 just isn't an option, nor would I, nor would I want it to be. And they need to run around, and so I have to say the being considered an essential service has made our life much more manageable than it otherwise would be. I think the bigger thing is making sure that I get out and get that fresh air, socialization on walks, distanced walks and things like that, so that I'm the best mom that I can be to him, in those hours that I am just sharply focused on being with him in the moment without devices. And I am aware that productivity has improved actually through COVID. I don't know if you've read the same sort of literature, but we're actually more productive. And I think that too is something that I value out of this. We used to spend a lot of times on airplanes and traveling. I would go to those wonderful markets that I talk about and be away for a few days at a time. And I think that actually would have been much harder in hindsight if that was still the case.
And have you noticed, because you guys are relationship builders, and you're working with a variety of communities, with the changes that you've had to adjust to, as everybody has during COVID, would you say that the relationships are stronger now than they were before? Even, there's a difference between going out in person and then speaking with people over Zoom or the telephone.
Well, another amazing question. And of course, real estate is a relationship-based industry. I mean, there's just no question that is, you have to love people if you're in this business. And that's almost the first thing I ask people when I chat with them if they're curious about a career in it. It's like, do you like people? And it's like a fully, it's an okay question to ask, because there are days where my partner who I love, he sometimes admits, I'm just not like that. I'm just not as friendly as you, Pat. My friends pick you better. And I'm like, no, yeah, but you're the smartest guy in the room. So sort of a good combo. But anyway, so to your question, Tony, about the relationships, I think what we've been able to see is, because of the sort of the layering on of sort of multiple things that this past year has brought, there's a vulnerability to and an openness to speak about our mental wellness and sort of our emotional resilience to these things that are happening around us. And I've felt a vulnerability, like a beautiful vulnerability from kind of across the company, where people are just saying like, yeah, hey, I need a bit of this, or this is how I feel about that. And everything from our equity, diversity, and inclusion group that we had operating for a few years, they formed a racial justice committee recently.
Wow.
Yeah, we launched a Pride at Grosvenor network that spans across the world. And you're seeing these people come through, bringing their full selves to work, expressing things on a level that again spans across the business, but also isn't just about real estate per se. I think we're better for it if we can take these learnings and these cues and just really be guided by them. And we'll be known to be, a great place to work, attracting the best and brightest, putting out the best product we can that is informed by the local community and serving everybody in that regard. So I don't know if that answers the
It
question.
does.
Does
Yeah,
it?
I definitely think it does. Thank you for answering that.
Of
Why
course.
why is building a brand so
Mm-hmm.
important in our marketplace? Because I find that, there's
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent on brand
Mm-hmm.
and reputation and building the culture that's within the company. Um, how have what kind of impact does that make on the employees and in the public eye?
Well, the first word that pops to mind is trust. I think when I think of brand, I think of trust, and like how do the two go together? And especially, in the biggest investment we'll make in our lives, the most emotional thing, the purchase of a home. And as I said, it's the home, if you will, is recently, like I read it's a newsletter called The Butterfly Voyage, and it's one of my most favorite newsletters, written by Magna Krishna. She's a hugely talented real estate marketer in the US. Anyway, she said homes are our most used product of 2020, like without a doubt. So, we're getting the attention now, the industry is. And so when I think about that and brand, I think about trust. And it is so important that if there is a developer out there who has been, I don't know, getting away with maybe delivering subpar product, it's people talk. People now know they want to, when they're opening and closing a door, is it press board, or is it a solid door? And these things matter, like noise canceling. I think we're just noticing the quality of the built product. And again, luckily, a company like Grosvenor, who has been sort of fixed on this for its existence. We've always thought about how our name attaches to our product, but I think it's going to make us better. I think the industry is going to be better. So I think that brand is really, I think if you're going to put your brand out there as a family name, or even maybe not a family name, people are going to do the research to find out who's behind that brand. So
Mm-hmm.
one way or another, the transparency is everything. They're going to find you, and you should want them to. It's one of the first things I say to people is, what's your personal brand? What's your brand out there? What if somebody were to Google you, would they see? Would it be a Facebook photo from 10 years ago doing shots at a bar, or are you rescuing a rescue from an oil spill? Like, so I think that's how, as developers, we should think about our personal brand and also who the spokesperson is for that brand. Having that, going through that exercise of those, key messages, so to speak, so that you're kind of reinforcing them, everyone's saying the same thing. And also being concerned or considerate around sort of being apolitical. That's not to say you don't have an opinion, but also those things do kind of follow you. And I think we need to consider how some actions that you take and statements you make can impact your brand and be divisive. And again, that's just not the way that we operate
At Grosvenor.
at Grosvenor. I know I was going to say I want to be cautious that I'm not speaking on Grosvenor's behalf too much, but because I share so many of these values and I've learned so much from Grosvenor. But again, when I give advice to just very candid advice to young people starting, I always take a big chunk of time to talk about personal brand. I think it's critically important.
Mm-hmm. Patti, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on? And if so, why was it so memorable?
Well, the one I sort of touched on around the shared values and coming up with our purpose at Grosvenor, I think I can see how it's resulted in people aligning or identifying their own values of trust, integrity, honesty, respect, with themselves, being able to see that in their workplace. There's less of a line between, work and home. And it's not to say you're on 24 hours, but it's an easy, it's an easier place to jump to when you're working at a place that values the same things you do. So that project was really great because I've got to see it play out, and I'm here to say that again, it's not a slogan on a coffee mug or on a mouse pad or wall. It's actually within each and every employee. So that project was wonderful, and it's enduring, and it's part of the company. But the other one that I absolutely love is the Rugby Sevens. So I don't know if anyone on the podcast here is anyone a rugby fan?
I don't watch rugby myself.
I've gone to a game at BC Place.
Oh, have you?
Okay, well that would probably be the tournament. So the World Rugby has a 10-city stop circuit. So the Sevens is now actually an Olympic qualifying sport. Ooh. And our men's and women's team, Canadian men's and women's, qualified. And in fact, our women won the bronze a few years ago. So it's a great sport, and Vancouver had never been on the circuit until several years ago. It was, I think, 2016 was the first year, and the big bid, and John Furlong was involved, and BC Rugby, and Sports Canada, and it was this huge effort to get them here. And Grosvenor stepped up as the title sponsor for the club section. And I like to think in a small way we contributed to bringing it here to Vancouver. And what it resulted in was BC Place Stadium being activated over two days in the spring to host the conference. But that resulted in over 80,000 people taking in, this new sport that Canada is so good at, and generated, I think, $17 million in hotel room occupancy and food and beverage. So there was an economic benefit to the city. There was that culture, vibrancy, that sporting life that, Vancouver is so well set up to do, and yet we don't, do it that often, certainly not now. But so having Grosvenor's name in that stadium, and flashing across the 360 LED lights and the jumbotron video, and creating all the collateral to go in front of these 80,000 people was wildly intimidating. And I thought, well, what are we going to say? What do we want people to know about Grosvenor? First of all, do they know how to say Grosvenor? So we ran this, we had a sort of playful campaign, Grosvenor, and so we had all the captains kind of being playful with the brand, which also was, it pushed the brand to a level that we hadn't traditionally been, being, a 300-year-old British company. Being playful with the name wasn't something we'd ever done, but these new opportunities for a marketer and a creative was has been a highlight because we did it sort of with respect and in a
Super
way
witty.
that.
So cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, thank you. But there was a great team involved, and so that tournament ran. We've done it now successfully 4 in a row, and we'll hopefully continue, in a slightly different way. But yeah, the rugby sevens, I would say, it was so unconventional and totally different, and yet
That's awesome.
struck.
Well, it's memorable too. And the
Yeah,
vibe's so good. The
Yeah.
vibe's awesome.
fancy
Well, everybody
dress.
dresses up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings us to who do you look up to, or what do you turn to for inspiration yourself to be in that
Well,
creative mode?
to be in that creative mode. Well, I listened to your podcast that just came out on where you spoke to your career coach, Jenny,
Yes.
on differentiation, and it really struck a chord with me because I too work with a career coach, and I do that. Not because I'm trying to jump ship or anything, but for all the reasons you mentioned. It's to help to we visualize kind of my best life, and what is that, and it's just a constant check. You just say, how's that going, and where are my saboteurs at work, and when am I am I operating in that zone of genius, and sort of all of those things. And so I looked to her. Name's Deborah Stellingworth, and she's the Stellar Life Project. She's a wonderful human. And so I look to her for kind of if I need a reset, if I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed or burnt out. But also I have a ritual on Saturdays, every Saturday, that I had done this for 15 years with my dad and my twin. We had a standing yoga class where we would walk together and do a restorative yoga session every Saturday, and then go to lunch after. And I now know that it was his way of spending time with us as a 30-year-old adults with families. He was there. It was a standing occasion, and we rarely missed it. And he passed suddenly 4 years ago, and Danny and I, my twin, we maintain that ritual. So we still do it on Saturdays. So,
Awesome.
yeah. And, and I will do it with my son, Robert. I will find that thing, whatever that thing is. So that resets me come heck or high water. Every Saturday I have a conscious reset of, prioritizing the week and making my to-do list, and, scheduling 2 or 3 things that absolutely have to get done, and throwing out the rest of the list because it's not important.
Right.
And,
I love that.
and isn't that great? It's called
It's
ditch your
so
to-do
good.
list, right? And if
Yeah.
it's not
Ditch your
scheduled, it's
to-do
not
list.
getting. If it's not scheduled, it's not getting done. So, and guess what? It's going to come back. If it's that important, it's going to be on your list next week.
Well, it certainly allows you to focus on the priorities,
right?
to really make way with what's important. Yeah.
That's a great inspiration.
I love that.
I'm going to start a ritual too every.
Are you?
Oh my gosh!
We all should.
Thank you.
That
I have Deborah
inspires
to
me.
thank for that. Wonderful.
What kind of advice do you have for graduates or someone who is wanting to switch careers? They want to work in real estate marketing or branding. Like what kind of advice?
Well, I'd say get curious. There is so much out there, and I know it can be hard to know where to look at times, but the most natural place to start would be the industry associations. And what I mean by that would be the likes of the ULI, BC chapter, Urban Development Institute, NAOP, CREW. Within each of those, they have subcommittees. So, for example, there's obviously nuances within the industry where maybe you're really good at numbers and budgets, or performa is going to be your thing. So perhaps you look into being on the treasury committee at CREW, or marketing communications. ULI has a communications committee. So there's ways you could, and they're always looking for help, right? So there's certainly ways you could start there, and it's a low cost, kind of low barrier to entry option. And I also think
you've lectured at the UBC's MBA program.
Oh yes.
So would you recommend that as well? Taking that?
Well, it's, and I have to be careful because my partner teaches at Sauder's MBA program, so I don't want to do a shameless plug. I did the Rotman MBA, so he was not my MBA professor. My friends joke about that, but no, he wasn't my teacher. I think having practical experience makes the what you spend, like the ROI on an MBA, it's critical you come in with that life experience, because otherwise it's just theoretical and you're trying to imagine what it means to, again, do a cash flow summary. When you get to the corporate finance module, if you don't know what an EBITDA is, you're kind of trying to figure it out. It's just not the best use of your $100,000, quite frankly. So there's a lot of specialized programs. And I mean, I mentioned BCIT. I think if someone's curious about a bit more education on marketing or things like that, BCIT is a great option. The technical institutes are amazing around here. And online now, I'm looking at a course at Harvard on communicating for impact. And it's a 2-week online. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, should I look quite seriously at that? And that's Harvard.
You're
when
like
did
a
I ever
lifelong student here.
Yeah.
Lifelong
Well,
student.
that's I mean, that I don't know if that will actually come to be, but thank you. I don't know. I get that a bit from my dad too. I feel like there's always room to improve. And so also on the bigger proposals, so things that are happening at, say, Little Mountain or the Molson Brewery site or the Squamish Nation land or St. Paul's, just again curious, like what's going, who's at the table, what are they, what's the community engagement look like, to your point about Brentwood? I mean, how thoughtful are the developers being about their name in the market, and is it, like, I think Griffin, I live in Kerrisdale. Griffin, I think, has been doing a great job here in Kerrisdale. Right,
The
Jenny, with
artwork's
the art.
beautiful.
And they bring in Brent Comber, a local, North Shore artist, and they have that gallery and really that listening and hearing, and they're going to build something that's respectful and completely responsive to what this neighborhood here in Kerrisdale needs and wants. And so that's an example. So Griffin interests me, so I kind of follow them, and I think that would be just a natural place to start, and leveraging one's network. So
These are really great suggestions, by the way, Patti.
Oh,
like you're going
thank
from
you.
one where you're paying for a coaching and education program to picking up a magazine, which virtually doesn't cost anything. So now I love how you're giving all these options to our listeners, because not everyone has the funds to hire somebody, and the information can be very overwhelming. Here's the thing. So obviously you ask all these questions internally when you're picking up a magazine or when you're walking by an ad, but you're very inquisitive because of the experience that you have. So someone who is brand new, they don't really know what to look for. How does someone gain all that experience besides all those years of working on projects? Like,
and are you referring to sort of real estate specifically, or in any industry?
I guess marketing in general, in any industry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the same, you hit on it earlier. It's, what catches your eye? Why do you like it? Why are you thinking about it? I often find the best learnings out of bad examples just as much as I find them out of good examples. So walking by a storefront, say in Kerrisdale, and I just think, gosh, why go with an italic font? That just misses the mark on what they're trying to say. So I think, okay, here's how I would redo this door, and even one of my biggest pet peeves is some of the Safeways I see. They don't have any product along the main corridor street, like the one they've just built here on Arbutus, and I just think, wow, what a missed opportunity. Yes, there's a big sign, but you can't actually see through the window to see people in the store and the fresh produce, and other stores do it really, really well. So like Meinhardt, for example, where you've got the flowers and you just get the sense of this richness that's the produce, and it makes you think, oh yeah, I'm out of milk, versus
right.
Sometimes I drive by a Safeway, I'm like, I don't think it doesn't evoke anything. I don't think anything.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a brand new development and it's beautiful, I'm sure it's built green and all of these things and great location. But so I think of the kind of opportunities as much as I think of the inspirations. And so someone starting in the industry, I'd say, yeah, whose work interests you? And maybe it could be that Griffin example. It's where they just notice someone doing a good job. So if they're sincere about, we're really passionate of wanting to join the industry, because let's face it, real estate really is one of Vancouver, next to tech and tourism. I mean, it is the fuel of our city here. There's a few kind of key areas depending on where you want to look, but I think with the marketing ones, the associations that I didn't mention, like the BCAMA, so the British Columbia American Marketing Association chapter, is great. They hold the Vision Conference every year, and this year it's online, and they always get wonderful speakers and or influencers like Seth Godin is great. Darian Kovacs does the Marketing News Canada podcast, and he's sponsored, I think, by Canada Post, and he does, I think he's Jelly Marketing. Ask Companies newsletter. I believe this content is free, but their newsletter, their morning newsletter, and within each of those, there'll be an article that will spark, will be, you can navigate essentially to your interest. And the Daily Hives and the Buzz Homes and the Urban Turf, and
just have to be a sponge to all this. Let's switch gears right now.
Sure.
I want to talk about women in this industry, because we're just trying to uplift and encourage gender equality. What kind of changes have you seen over the years of women working in this industry or in this career in particular,
if any?
Well, yeah. Thank you. I slightly in jest, I don't know if either of you have either attended the ICSE conference in Whistler.
I haven't.
I felt that it was very much a boys' club at the time, and so I actually was not comfortable. I haven't attended.
Okay, interesting. So having never attended, but that was the reputation.
A long time ago, in 2010. In 2010. Or sorry, no, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, a while back.
And Jenny, you haven't attended.
I haven't attended.
Yeah. So I bring that up because I think it's kind of an interesting place to start in my mind. When I heard your question, that's what instantly popped to my head was as a barometer on the industry. When I first went, Toni, I probably didn't make as good judgment as you, and I went, and I think I was maybe one of 5 women. I mean, like, it was so glaringly obvious that we were underrepresented, not only at the conference but in the industry overall. And so I have to say, joining the industry or making that decision, I don't know how conscious it was. It never occurred to me that being a woman would mean anything, actually, unless I gave it meaning, and I never really have. And it's not to say that others haven't experienced. I just have to, I think, because I have worked with really wonderful, reputable companies, I'm so very grateful. I haven't experienced again, being held back in any way from being a woman, but ICSE is an interesting one because I attended as recently as last year, and like, it felt 50-50, and so we've come a long way. If you use that as a like I said, kind of a barometer, it's changed in that simple way, or from that simple measure. And you often see a lot of the creatives being women. I think that early on that was the interior designers and whatnot, but now it's going both ways. I see a lot of men interior designers, a lot of men graphic designers, and so it's just a good sort of sampling. And
I'm glad that you touched on that, because I've never been, but I imagine that it would be more equitable now than when I was wanting to go. Good for you for going.
Thank you. I always felt very sort of taken care of, if for lack of a better word, not to mean that in any sort of patronizing way. But again, just if you surrounding yourself with good people, and I always have been so fortunate. So,
what do you look forward to most in your career in the next 5 years?
oh, I love that question. What do I look most forward to? Well, I guess what I said earlier around, the focus, how people are so acutely aware now of their homes and living spaces. And I think, if there ever was a, quick decision that was made on a layout or sort of, the utility of the home, I think we're really going to think through, does it need to be a breakfast bar, or like, or could this be a nook of some kind, or where's the opportunity to create some privacy, or just these places of, refuge that I think we all seek out, whether we have a roommate or like me, a family of 5, or a little one versus teenagers. They need their space. He needs his space. And so I think I'm most looking forward to seeing how homes change. It's not necessarily to say bigger is better. I just think the utility and thought. I hope we're going to see, with the focus on the environment, making better decisions around better quality product that are enduring for the longer term. So you get the payoff, that you may spend more up front, but you're going to get a better built product, with lower expenses down the road, and just overall better for the world. So kind of remote management and monitoring, I think, will make us more efficient. The digital advances that we've seen in the past year, we can use to our advantage. So, the productivity that can come from meetings, and just prop tech and those kinds of things, like the touchless this and that. And I get into a car where I don't have to hold my key up, and I could never go back to using a key to open a car door. Like it's so hard to go back, so especially simple. Holding a baby in a bag and groceries. And it's like,
those are very great initiatives. Yeah. If we can see that in the future, that would be fantastic.
I think it's coming for sure.
Well, yeah, for sure, especially when Patty's on the board of directors.
Patty, I love the affirmations. Thank you.
We look forward to supporting you on that.
100%.
You guys are amazing. Thank you. So, I think too that the look in at the reality of working parents, even though I said, yes, of course we have health, and I'm so lucky and I can carve out the time. I think that, we don't go back from the knowledge of what people are experiencing in their family life, and, medical appointments if you need to tend to an aging parent or a very small child. I mean, we've had to look into that now. Again, sort of a scream in the background, and the ambient noise around us. And so I think that we don't go back, and I think it's blown the lid off a lot of societal issues that needed to surface, that have, and we're going to be better for it. I'm excited for the world our kids get to grow up in.
I love I can hear your kids in the background right now. I think it's great. Okay,
this is real life. This is real life.
Like, why would we pretend that it's not? Everybody's going through this right now. So I think the authenticity there is, I like the way things are going myself. Okay, and it's easier not being constrained by an old societal norm, which is, in the office, no kids or anything. It's so quiet. It's unrealistic.
Right. We want to finish off
something
our
fun.
Session with rapid fire questions. And you've been doing so well.
So
I don't know.
It's so calming to hear your voice.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same. You must get it all the time, both of you.
That's what we were just talking about before we started this episode, that we've been getting a lot of compliments about.
Oh my goodness.
Or it's actually our producer that makes it sound really good.
Yeah, that's Brayden. Thank you.
Yeah, from Podfather Creative.
He's the best.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start. Question number 1. What is the current book you are reading?
I love that you just asked that. I just got to page 731 of A Promised Land by Barack Obama.
Oh, good.
I haven't read it yet,
but I heard it's really good.
I just finished it, so I'm moving on to my next one, and I don't know what that is.
Okay, question number 2 is describe yourself in 3 adjectives.
Ooh, playful, Nice. Creative.
Number 3, if you were not working in real estate marketing, fill in the blank, I would be
Selling art at my own art gallery. Not my art, but my art gallery representing amazing artists.
That's so cool.
Wow.
That's
What kind of
sorry, go
art
ahead.
do you like?
Well, I am happiest when I have a canvas in front of me and a palette of acrylic paint. So I love painting my own art. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Arbutus trees and oceans and things like that.
Landscaping then.
Landscaping.
Nature.
Calming.
Nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one. What is one word that describes Grosvenor?
Reputable.
Strong word. What is your word or mantra for 2021?
It would have been productive, but I think I need to celebrate that that's what actually 2020 was. So I need to move on.
You can add that
That
what
was the next
the
one.
question was what the next question was, what did you learn about yourself in 2020? It could be productive. Being
Yeah,
productive.
I would say so. That surprised me the most. For 2021, possibility. Yeah, I'll do another P word, possibility.
Awesome.
Last question. How do you measure success?
I really think it's who came on the journey with you and who benefited. So, I guess there's individual goals and things set out for ourselves as individual endeavors. So, for example, me getting my MBA was my goal, successful, but I definitely think about it as broader. So, a successful development, for example, would only be in the case where someone beyond our bottom line benefited. So does the community have a new park? Do people get to come and shop and sit and have hot chocolate with their grandfather on the bench that we put in? Like, to me, that success is bigger than just the bottom line, for sure.
I do want to add an extra question. So we talked about style, and you look at branding all the time. How would you describe your personal style?
Oh, comfortable, casual. I know earlier I mentioned my twin sister, and so we have 3 brothers, and people often ask, how do you tell them apart? Like, because no one can tell us apart. And Robbie, my oldest brother, said, well, it's easy. Danny always looks like she's come straight from the courtroom. She's sharply dressed. And Patti always looks like she's either come to or from a yoga class. That's how you tell them apart. So, yeah, I like nice things. I have to say that is getting older. I turned 40 this year. I'm spending my money now more on sort of quality items that the brands have a meaning behind them. I'm quite aware now about where I get my things. That's something kind of I've learned through my stepdaughters, who are brilliant young ladies, and they've opened my eyes to just kind of eco fashion and consumerism in that way. So I'm now quite aware of where I get my things, and that's a very long way to see kind of local, casual, comfortable, and yet I do like myself a good Louboutin heel. Not that I've been able to wear.
You can't wear it anywhere right now. You can wear it at home.
Around the house.
Yeah.
Around the house.
That was a great question. Thanks for asking that.
Last question. Where can our audience and listeners find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, it would be such an honor to hear from anybody. And I will always, always take the time to meet for either, like I said, a distant talk or a Zoom chat on any aspect of anything I touched on today. Or, yeah, and then I'm on, LinkedIn for sure. That's such a great one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and you've been very much an inspiration for me over the years.
And Patti, you're just so lovely.
You are.
I'm sure that
Oh
people
my gosh,
listening,
Toni.
just very well spoken. I can feel your energy through Zoom. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your tips and tricks with us.
Thank you.
I'm humbled beyond words, and I have to echo what I said earlier. Thank you both. When you asked me who inspires me, I should have said the two of you for taking the stand to create this podcast, to get your voice, to create a forum in which women feel in the company of others that, they too can do anything and anything's possible. So you've created that, and thank you both. And Braden, thank you for setting us up.
Thanks, Patti.
Thank you, Patti. Thank you so much for your generous spirit. And we look forward to hopefully getting together soon
Yeah,
for
I
coffee.
count on it. I count on that.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you so
You
much.
as well. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.